1989. The world looks ahead to a brighter future, but history could have easily taken. "1989. The world looks ahead to a brighter future, but history could have easily taken a different course." 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes the new General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. His attempts at revitalizing an ailing USSR bring him into direct conflict with hardline party members and the military. It doesn't take much to envision a Cold War turned decisively hot. 1987. A surprise coup removes Gorbachev and his allies, squashing any prospect of change in the USSR. An old guard troika, representing the party, KGB, and military, takes over. The Stalinist-inspired leadership wants to reclaim USSR's former glory. Its power is militarily enforced, its dictate absolute. Budding unrest in Armenia and the Baltic countries is crushed without remorse. The West remains silent. Emboldened, the Troika looks to tighten control over its territories and neighboring states. Neutral Finland, in an audacious KGB-orchestrated political takeover, is forced to embrace a pro-Soviet government. The Helsinki coup of 1987 is a watershed moment between West and East. Tensions skyrocket. An outraged U.S. President Ronald Reagan refuses to stand by idle. He initiates a second phase of the so-called New Cold War. Covert ops and counterinsurgencies surge across the globe. A flurry of armament deals tighten bonds with new and old allies alike. Western sanctions and rising military expenditure press the Soviet Union into ever-worsening trade agreements, inflating crippling debts. With oil reserves running low, food shortages in the USSR turn commonplace. Discontent grows. Popular demonstrations in Poland and East Germany are violently dispersed. Warsaw Pact's hold on power slips with each passing day. 1989. NATO plans a larger-than-ever reforger exercise for September 1989. A paranoid troika believes conflict in Western Europe is imminent. They plan to strike first. Moscow sees conventional war as the only recourse. June 20th, 1989, Germany. The strategic Warsaw Pact's offensive across the inner German border has taken NATO largely by surprise. Facing NATO's CENTAG, the Soviet 8th Guards Army begins its multi-pronged attack at 5 o'clock. The objective is Frankfurt am Main, home to the 5th Corps, a key military target and transport hub. At the frontier, the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, with a few isolated battalions, put up fierce resistance for hours. Overwhelming firepower ultimately results in a Soviet breakthrough at Fulda. The armored vanguard surges to Frankfurt. Further north, the flank of the main invasion is assigned to the East German 4th Motorisierte Schützen Division. They advance on Bad Hersfeld. The National Volksarmee aims to press further and seize Asfeld, establishing a covering force. This would protect the Warsaw Pact's axis of attack against any counterstrikes from the Bundeswehr's 5th Panzer Division. NATO has an early chance to disrupt the Soviet thrust on Frankfurt. Warsaw Pact's capture of Asfeld becomes paramount. A series of pitched battles await.
General, we got word the East German 4th Mod Schützendivision is advancing on Bad Hersfeld. They intend to seize Alsfeld. This would put them in an excellent position to block our counterattack on the Soviet offensive at Fulda. It is paramount that the 5th Panzer Division reaches Alsfeld before the East Germans. Major Becker, have you been in contact with the Americans?
Jawohl. Die 3. Schwadron der 11. ACR befindet sich derzeit in Bad Hersfeld. Sie können nur ein paar Stunden halten. Sie könnten auch nach Alsfeld ausweichen und von unseren Territorialtruppen aufgenommen werden. NATO-Kräfte im Sektor sind begrenzt und es wird Zeit kosten, Verstärkung einzuführen. Das Panzergrenadierbataillon 152 kann sofort aus Schwarzenborn eingesetzt werden und wird später vom Panzergrenadierbataillon 142 verstärkt. Restteile der Panzerbrigade 14 sowie Panzergrenadierbrigade 13 können frühestens morgen früh nachgeführt werden. Bis dahin kämpfen wir mit dem, was wir zur Verfügung haben. Wir müssen unsere Stellung halten.
June 20th, 1989, Germany. The strategic Warsaw Pact's offensive across the inner German border has taken NATO largely by surprise. Facing NATO's CENTAG, the Soviet 8th Guards Army begins its multi-pronged attack at 5 o'clock. The objective is Frankfurt am Main, home to the 5th Corps, a key military target and transport hub. At the frontier, the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, with a few isolated battalions, put up fierce resistance for hours. The Soviet 8th Guards Army spearheads the offensive at Fulda. The American 11th ACR's squadrons must resist for as long as possible, while the Soviet and East German divisions cannot afford to let up their advance. The Warsaw Pact seeks to capture Frankfurt. NATO is desperate to regroup and counterattack. Both sides battle against time. Initiative, economy of force, and speed will be key to achieving victory.
General, the Soviet 8th Guards Army vanguard will reach Fulda in hours. Given their numerical superiority, it's clear to NATO that this is the Warsaw Pact's main axis of advance. Their war aim? Frankfurt, by way of the Kinzig Valley. The 11th ACR and our border forces will only be able to hold off the enemy temporarily. Do what you must, but slow down the offensive. CENTAG reinforcements are being rushed to the front, but need time to deploy. The 1st U.S. 3rd Armored Division unit should reach Genhausen later today. The Bundeswehr is sending their tanks to Eichsfeld, planning to counterattack. However, the Nationale Volksarmee intends to spoil this operation. Major?
Indeed, General. The East German 4th Motorisierte Schützendivision is on Bad Hersfeld's doorstep. They have a chance to encircle the 311th ACR. If the West German 5th Panzer Division can secure Alsfeld-Lauterbach on time, NATO might be able to disrupt the offensive at Fulda. Our troops have already made contact southeast of Fulda. It's going to be a tough fight, but resist as long as you can. With further reinforcements, hopefully we'll be able to contain the offensive. Good luck, sir.
June 20th, 1989. Late at night, with the specter of war looming, and the main Warsaw Pact invasion a few hours away, a covert operation is launched at NATO's weak point, the boundary between CENTAG and Northag. The goal is Kassel, using charter flights from Finland as a modern Trojan's horse. Soviet and East German elite commandos secure the Kassel-Kelden airport and establish a bridgehead deep in NATO's rear. Ground forces rush to link up. The surprise strike aims to drive an unsurmountable wedge between NATO commands.
General, Soviet and East German special forces have seized Kassel-Kelden airport. As we speak, enemy armor has crossed the inner German border, less than 30 kilometers from Kassel and Göttingen. The Warsaw Pact's opening shot was this daring airborne assault deep behind our lines. With only limited NATO forces available, the threat of the enemy breakthrough is real. Major?
Herr General, es ist klar, dass der Feind die Initiative hat. Die westdeutsche 2. Panzergrenadierdivision ist in alle Richtungen verstreut. Sie müssen sich neu formieren, bevor wir zur Verteidigung Kassels einsetzen können. Erobern Sie den Flughafen Kassel-Calden zurück. Andernfalls wird feindliche Verstärkung per Luft weiter zugeführt. Wenn wir Kassel verlieren, wird der Warschauer Pakt mit Sicherheit in Richtung Diemelstadt vorrücken, um die Verbindung zwischen Northag und CENTAG zu unterbrechen. Das belgische 1. Korps und die britischen Truppen könnten helfen, aber abgesehen von der Luftunterstützung müssen wir mit dem kämpfen, was wir haben.
June 26th, 1989. World War III in Europe is fully unleashed. The Warsaw Pact's advance on Fulda continues. NATO's attention is drawn towards CENTAG and the upcoming battle for Frankfurt. But Maskirovka's deception is at play. A major new Warsaw Pact offensive will fall on Northag. In a left hook strike, the Soviet 1st Guards Army breaks out of the Kassel salient. It aims to slice through Northag's soft underbelly, threatening to cut NATO forces in West Germany in half. The partially mobilized Belgian 1st Corps and the Bundeswehr's battle-mauled 2nd Panzer Grenadier are all that NATO can muster, forcing the British 1st Corps to divert troops, weakening North Ag. So dire the situation, rear area West German territorial reservists are thrown straight into frontline combat. The Warsaw Pact needs to secure the Dortmund Autobahn to reap the rewards of their high-risk gamble, while NATO must secure Kassel and re-establish the vital link to Sentag.
Sir, the Soviets have played a winning hand with their surprise attack on Kassel. Local NATO units were forced to withdraw in the face of superior forces and overwhelming firepower. North Ag has been hastily redirected to shore up the defences in this sector. This means our command is a hodgepodge of armies and units, including the West German 3rd Corps, the 1st Belgian Corps plus 1st British Corps. If we coordinate well, we have a shot at retaking Kassel. Major?
Sir, the battered Bundeswehr's 2nd Panzer Grenadier Division has managed to stabilize the lines north of Kassel. Soviet armored spearheads are stalling in front of Göttingen, but remain a force to be reckoned with. For now, we have contained the enemy advance. Additional British and Belgian armor and mechanized infantry are deploying as we speak. Use them to good effect, General, and take back Kassel.
June 26, 1989. War engulfs Europe. A week has passed since the Warsaw Pact's breakthrough at Fulda, with the Soviets and East Germans finally at the gates of Frankfurt. NATO's screening units have delayed the invasion significantly, buying enough time for fresh reinforcements to deploy. The Warsaw Pact is on the cusp of achieving its operational goals, but most of its frontline troops are spent. Few reserves remain for this critical last push. Meanwhile, NATO is marshalling its forces for a counterattack, but remains undecided on when and where to strike best.
The early sacrifices made by the 11th Armored Cavalry have not been in vain. Facing stiff resistance, the enemy was unable to capture Frankfurt. We now have multiple NATO units reinforcing the Sentag front. The moment has arrived to counterattack. 4 armored divisions and 2 infantry divisions are on the line. More units will deploy in the days to come. We have several options to roll back the Soviets and East Germans. Major?
The Bundeswehr's 5th Panzer Division in the north has been joined by the U.S. 3rd Armored Division. Capturing Alsfeld from the East Germans would force the enemy to Bad Hersfeld and Fulda. In the center, the U.S. 8th Infantry Division holds Hanau. Don't underestimate the Soviets. They might be bruised and battered, but they can still relaunch their offensive to take Frankfurt. We have multiple units reinforcing the Würzburg axis on the southern flank. With the support of the West German 12th Panzer Division, we can aim to punch through the stretched enemy lines and retake Schweinfurt and Bad Kissingen. Sir, the U.S. 1st Armored Division's arrival is imminent. We have some flexibility in where they should deploy. We can order them to the Würzburg sector. Or they can be commanded to deploy in Miltenberg. General, where do you want to deploy the U.S. 1st Armored Division? Understood, sir. We will relay your chosen location to the division.